Hey everybody, Dr. Osgood here with Grassroots Functional Medicine. I hope you are all doing well. I had a couple extra minutes today and I wanted to jump on and talk to you a little bit about the immune system. I have a lot of patients who are struggling with various issues, and the majority of them are related to a faulty immune system, whether that's autoimmunity or whether that's chronic infections. So a lot of you guys are really well educated and have done your research. So I wanted to try to bring some clarity to the basic immune response. I'm also going to talk a little bit about, for those of you who read about the Th1 and Th2 dominance, which are different ways your immune system can react, and some of the supplements and some of the lifestyle interventions that may be helpful for bringing balance into your immune system. So let's dive right into how everything works here real quick. For starters, when you have are exposed to something that is potentially problematic, we like to refer to that as a pathogen. So a pathogen can be anything from an undigested food to a bacteria to a virus to a fungal species. We know it's something that your immune system is going to recognize as foreign, and then it has to make the decision on whether or not it's a problem. So the first thing that happens is throughout your body you have antigen presenting cells that are constantly circulating. Antigen presenting cells, what their job is to do is to find bad guys, gobble them up, and then detect, is this something we need to destroy, or is this something we can keep around, depending on how problematic the pathogen tends to be. These antigen presenting cells are typically dendritic cells or macrophages. Macrophages is macro big eater, and that's what they do. They go around and they eat up the pathogens, and then they determine what they need to do. So as you can see here in this picture, it's gobbling up the pathogen, then it breaks it down into little pieces, and then if it's a problem, what it does is it sends out chemical messengers to recruit naive T cells. Naive T cells are immature T cells, and what happens is this antigen will then pass off pieces of this pathogen to this naive T cell. The naive T cell says, "Hey, we're getting the signal here that this needs to be destroyed." So what it does instantly is it recruits the natural killers and the cytotoxic T cells, and their job is to kill, 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 kill. So now this is really important because this is something that happens fairly quickly in response to this pathogen to try to eliminate it as soon as it can. The problem with these natural killer cells and these cytotoxic T cells is that they're not very specific on finding their target. So think of these natural killer cells and these cytotoxic T cells as the SWAT team. So, the SWAT team just gets the call that they need to go in and kill this pathogen. But they're just not really great about finding the target, but they still go in with guns ablazing, and there's a lot of collateral damage because they are, again, not very specific about finding that target. So this happens for a while. Sometimes this cytotoxic T cells and these natural killer cells can get rid of the pathogen and everything is good to go. But a lot of times, because they're not real specific, we need a more specific targeted approach. So these naive T cells will recruit B cells. Now, B cells, their job is to make antibodies. So again, these naive T cells will hand off pieces of this antigen, and then these B cells will then make antibodies, which are like tags for the immune system or targets for the immune system, to the pathogen. So these antibodies will then be released from these B cells. These antibodies will then stick to the pathogen, and then that serves as a target. So these cytotoxic T cells and these natural killer cells know exactly where to go and what to kill. So that makes them much more accurate, much more specific, and much more effective at getting rid of the pathogen without a lot of collateral damage. So once these targets are there and the cytotoxic T cells and natural killer cells do their job, then we need to bring peace to the scenario. Once the pathogen is gone, you don't want the cytotoxic T cells to continue to go out with guns ablazing because they're going to cause more tissue destruction and more problems. And we don't want these B cells to create a lot of problems with, or create more antibodies or too many antibodies, so they start tagging things inappropriately. So what brings balance to this equation are these regulatory T cells. So the regulatory T cells are the police chiefs on the crime scene that are saying, "Hey, SWAT team, you need to calm down. The job has been done. Don't kill anybody else. And then the B cells, then he tells them, hey, B cells, we've got our target. You did a great job, but stop making those antibodies because we don't want to tag things that are going to be destroyed inappropriately. So the T regulatory cells are a big player at really calming down, suppressing the immune response, and then when the immune system is when it is going after the bug, it does a great job about balancing out who is responding and how much they're responding. So T regulatory cells are something we put a lot of attention on when we're dealing with autoimmunity or we're dealing with inflammatory conditions, because they're really the game changers that bring resolution to the scenario long term. So when we're looking at these cytotoxic T cells and these natural killer cells, that's actually called our T helper 1 response or a Th1 response. So that is the killing phase, whereas the Th2 response is more of the antibody production and the tagging phase. Now, there's another direction these these naive T cells can go. They can actually morph into Th17 cells. This is something that's a little bit newer, again, an understanding. But the Th17 cells are more inflammatory and will drive autoimmunity. So what we want to do in this immune system is we really want to have balance. We don't want to have a lot of Th17 production and destruction. We don't want to have too much of this Th1 dominance that is going to cause a lot of killing and tissue injury. And we don't want to have too much tagging with these B cells. We really want to bring balance to this whole equation. So when we look at Th1 phenotypes and Th2 phenotypes, we know there's specific disease processes that correlate with this Th1 or Th2 response. So, for example, when we're looking at these Th1 response, which again is the overactive killing, that's where we're looking at MS, Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, Lyme disease, mold or viral illness, even Alzheimer's is being linked with the Th1 dominance. And then the Th2 dominance is more things that are like allergy and asthma, chemical sensitivity, histamine issues, parasites, malignancy. So when we have some diseases that are likely to be favoring one side or the other, sometimes we can support those pathways to upregulate the non-dominant side. So, for example, when we have someone who is not having a very strong Th1 response or a strong natural killer cell or cytotoxic T cell response, there's certain things that can upregulate that, like astragalus or echinacea, medicinal mushrooms, grapeseed extract. And then there's some that are theorized to help support Th2, like caffeine, green tea, resveratrol, curcumin, quercetin. So these things, again, there's not a lot of great evidence on this. A lot of this has been theorized, but these are things that you can play around with and try to utilize. But really what's going to matter is how you feel and how these supplements affect you. And just know that it's not perfect, right? You're going to have one person who may look textbook Th1 dominant, and then they respond negatively to a Th2 supportive substance. So you just have to play around with it. It's not black and white. This research is always changing, but you want to stay on top of it and really have a true understanding of how the immune system works if you're dealing with autoimmunity or an inflammatory condition. The other thing that we really like to put attention to is these T regulatory cells, because ultimately these guys are the game changers. These are the ones that really bring peace and resolution to the playing field. So this is where some of those substances like omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, vitamin A, probiotics, or having a healthy microbiome can be helpful. Glutathione can be helpful. And another big player that does have some good research support in the research are short-chain fatty acids. And I don't think these guys get enough attention, but short-chain fatty acids come from your microbiome, the good flora in your microbiome, eating resistant starches from your diet, and then they take these resistant starches and they turn them into short-chain fatty acids, which are really great for colonic health, really great for immune function, for brain health, for heart health. There's a lot of good research out there on the importance of short-chain fatty acids. A lot of that comes from diet, but you can get them from nutraceuticals as well. So long story short, I know this is a lot of information and it can be confusing. You don't have to understand everything, but it is important to know when you're dealing with a faulty immune system, why is that happening? And what are some of the ways that we can really manipulate the immune system to try to see an improvement in symptoms and a reduction in the destruction that's actually happening. And with the TH17 side of things, I didn't really talk much about that, but that's where those lifestyle interventions come into play. Having the right diet, removing infections, exercising, getting enough sleep, removing toxins from your body, all of those things will help with regulating the amount of TH17 that's being produced. So, it all begins with the basics. No matter what you're dealing with or how complex we dive into the nitty gritty of the immune response, the basics, those foundational elements are the most important things that you can emphasize and focus in on to get resolution of your symptoms. So I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks again for watching.